All right, friends, I'm back. I don't have my decarbonize hat on, but this is serious. We're going to get into the nerdy weeds for a minute with respect to leases. Because by far the most common questions I get asked are, what about penalties and what about non-cooperative tenants? I made a couple videos about this and why leases are and should be a key part of this conversation. But let's get a little bit into the nuance here. So in prior videos, I talked about how focusing on Seattle's emissions standard, there's some carve-outs for leases that may have been in existence and barred or blocked owner access to equipment that was necessary in order to comply. So I'm not going to get into the specifics of compliance under BEPS or those pathways, but instead point out why leases are and should be an important part of this conversation. So the slide that I have up here is some of the slides from the stakeholder feedback sessions that were conducted. And if you look at these slides, as well as more closely at the director's report and the director's rule, it's obvious that there was some concern out there in the zeitgeist regarding existing leases that may bar access to things. HVAC systems and hot water systems were specifically called out, and potentially some lender covenants that also barred access to equipment. So leases were sort of central part of this conversation. So to manage that concern, because I always wondered where this date came from. Basically, again, this carve out for a sort of one-time ability for an owner to apply if they had a lease in place before January 12th, 2024, which is the effective date of BEPS, right? So from a practical standpoint, owners, if they couldn't comply because there were these restrictions, they had to prove that the lease was in place before the effective date of BEPS. So you couldn't, after BEPS, basically sign a lease that hamstrung you as an owner from accessing tenant spaces and then seek this type of relief. That totally makes sense. But what's the big picture point here, right? From a practical standpoint, we want to make sure that leases don't prohibit access to mechanical systems or other areas that are necessary for BEPS compliance, because not be able to seek relief after the lease is signed after that particular date, and even in that case, only for one compliance cycle. So this is another reason why leases should be audited and reviewed for potentially problematic causes. Building performance standards completely change the game. I always tell colleagues, your emotional support lease is not managing some of your owner client's most significant exposure areas. And that includes things like an inability to actually access, whether it's the physical mechanical systems or the data that's necessary. Lease audits are really important tools now that building performance standards exist. So I'll link to the other videos. We'll keep diving into these sort of nerdy sessions, and